And I just remember thinking, oh my God, I'm being shot right now. And everything at that point, although it's happening quick, it's also happening very slow in my mind. Like there's not enough time to really react.
I do not know you, but I am your brother.
You do not know me, but I am your protector.
I will run into a burning building to save your life.
Though I do not know your name, I will take a bullet for you.
Though we've never met,
I believe in duty
and sacrifice of self.
Your family is my family.
Is my family. Your life is my duty.
What's going on, guys? Time for another episode of Behind the Uniforms. I am super honored to be here with this young lady right now, Stacy. We're going to get into that in 1 second, but first I want to set some context. We're down here on the road in Florida with the Wounded Officers Initiative at Heroes Weekend, and I mean, talk about some true heroes that we've met. And none of you guys will acknowledge that you're heroes. You're very humble. But listen, it's not about me. It's about you and you guys in this weekend. So do you mind telling everybody who you are?
Yeah, my name is Stacy West. I'm a medically retired police officer from the city of Arbandale, which is located in Central Florida. I worked for the agency only 18 months before I was catastrophically injured on a domestic violence call.
When I listened to that tape, it was like a punch to the stomach. Can you walk through with everybody, as difficult as it is, what happened?
Yeah, that audio is really hard to listen to for a lot of people, and I've listened to it a gajillion times. It's pretty gut-wrenching. So basically what happened is I was called out to a 911 hang-up, and they told me that it was possibly a family disturbance, and I told them that I'm on my way out there, and I'm probably about 10 minutes from the residence, and it sounded really familiar to me, this place. I knew I'd been there before, but so I looked it up on the map, and I was like, yeah, I remember exactly who this person is. I had some dealings with him a month before for a barking dog complaint. He was pretty aggressive then, but I, shook it off as it's early in the morning, and, he was just cranky because I woke him up in the middle of the night. So I walk up to the door. I had my hand on my gun and the first safety down, just in case I needed to pull it. And I get up to the door, reach over with my left hand, knock, ring the doorbell, and then I turn to check the window. Because where I had to walk up to was between the window and the door, and on the other side of the door is a garage wall. So that was the only place I could stand. And I turned to check the window, and when I do, he starts shooting me. And the first round gets my arm, and it just feels like a lot of pressure. And at that point, because I'm looking at the window, I don't know if it's coming from the window or coming from the door. And it didn't really feel like pain, just a lot of pressure. And that round actually blew out both of my arteries, damaged my median nerve, and flung my hand backwards. Well, when it flung me backwards, it slowly turned me a little bit. And then he shot me in my duty weapon, went across the top of the slide, separating the slide from the grip, ejecting the magazine out onto the ground, and forcing the round inside to fire. And forcing my gun to be completely trapped within my holster. It was not able to be removed. Now I'm facing the door, and all of this is happening really quickly because he's slapping the trigger as quick as he can. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, I'm being shot right now. And everything at that point, although it's happening quick, it's also happening very slow in my mind. Like there's not enough time to really react. So he gets my abdomen, and I just, I kind of go like this, and I just scream at the top of my lungs. And that round actually forces me backwards. And as I'm falling backwards, I can see the sparks coming out of the door, and it was just like the rounds were just coming right over my face. When I hit the ground, I immediately roll over and just try to get away from him. And I dragged myself across the ground with the left side of my body, and my mic had fallen off my shoulder onto the pocket of my shirt, and that triggered me to key up. And I couldn't hear anything. He had just perforated my eardrums, and so I grabbed the mic and I key up, and I just scream, "Help me!" And then I drag myself a little farther, and I can still hear him shooting. And I key up again, and I scream that, I'm hit, And I drag myself a little further and scream that I need 911. And I'm going towards this hedge line. I can see like an opening in the hedges that were in his yard, and I'm just trying to get away as quick as possible. And I have no idea if he's, going to come out and finish, the job. So, and I have no idea if I'm getting out on the radio because I can't hear anything, and I can't hear anybody saying anything back to me. So I pull myself to the neighbor's house around the hedge line, and I can hear their garage door opening. And I get just near the garage door, and I look up, and it's about halfway up, and I can see this Spanish family, 2 men and a woman standing inside the garage. And I look up at them and I say, "Help me, please help me." And I think they panicked. They went back in the house and hit the garage door button, and the garage door started to come back down. And I'm not yet inside the garage. So I pull myself in, and I'm exhausted. I had just pulled myself 50 feet. So I'm just completely exhausted. And I get just inside the garage, and I'm looking around. There's nowhere else for me to go. And I just roll over and, just lay there. And I pick up my mic, and it sounds like everybody on the radio is just calm. Like I was afraid I hadn't really gotten out. And I key up again, and I said, "Did you guys hear me? I've been hit." And they said, "We heard you. We're on our way." And now I've turned my radio completely down because I have no idea where this guy is. And I have no backup there. I'm alone. And I'm trying to tell the family inside, to come back out and close this garage door down. So they come out, and they hit the button, and the door's just like going up and down, up and down. And I'm still trying to focus on giving my partners directions to find me. And they go back inside, the garage door is still up. It's just like this nightmare situation, and I have no idea where this guy is, and I'm just scared to death and just alone. And then they finally come back out. They don't come totally out. They just crack the door a little bit. I see a hand come out, hit the garage door button, and the garage door starts to come down. And I'm just laying there now, alone, and thinking about how unfair this is, and unfair for my family, my fiance, who's my husband now, and my mom. And I just kept thinking about them over and over again, and how they weren't going to get a chance to say goodbye to me in that moment. I thought I would never take another breath. That was going to be it for me. And I think the loneliness was probably the worst part. So I just try to stay focused and try to, give instructions on exactly where I was. And also try to, the family does eventually come back out and try to call 911. And they spoke Spanish, so they didn't understand anything I was saying, and I didn't understand anything that they were saying. But my partners, it feels like it takes them forever to get there. And everybody's talking on the radio. Everybody's just trying to get out. And at one point, I can't key up anymore. And somebody had been giving bad directions. They're like, "I think she said she's in 407, a baby blue house." And it wasn't even close to where I said I was. And I was trying to key up, and I kept getting the busy signal because I hadn't pushed my emergency button. And I just remember finally getting through and saying, "Get off the radio, God damn it. I'm over here. You guys are, you're going to the wrong place." So it took about 7 minutes for my partners to actually get there and locate me. Another 9 minutes for the fire department to get there, and about 17 for the ambulance to show up. So in a nutshell, that's the experience that I had.
So at the time, I actually worked in the jail, and I was at work. We worked the same schedule at the time. And one of my buddies was transporting inmates around, so he had a radio for the outside traffic. And so basically what happened was he heard it over the radio and then told me, he's like, "Hey, something's going on in Arbondale," because he knew that my fiance worked there. So I ran down to the control tower where there's a phone, because there's no cell phone service, in a jail, and called dispatch and said who I was. And basically they told me what happened. They were really confused. They didn't know who I was because obviously it had just happened. I learned it pretty much right as it occurred. They hadn't transported her or anything to the hospital or anything yet. So I basically just grabbed my stuff and started driving. It was about a 45-minute drive to the hospital that she ultimately ended up being taken to. Yeah.
What's going through your head as you're making that 45-minute drive? Because that must have been forever.
Yeah, it probably is normally 45 minutes, and I'm pretty sure I did it in like 20 minutes or something. I mean, I was just flying. Luckily, it was kind of late at night, and so there wasn't too much traffic or anything. Just everything you can think of from, hope she's okay, because I knew no information. All I knew was that she was involved in a shooting and that she was talking on the radio still. So I at least knew that she was talking, which I thought was good, but I had no idea if she was, if it was like something minor or something major. I didn't know anything. So it was definitely hard, and they weren't sure. I didn't know where she was going to be at first. So I started to drive towards one city for the hospital, and then learned that she was going to be taken to another one. So I kind of had to reroute. It was very stressful. Honestly, I don't remember too much because it flew by. Next thing I know, I was pulling into the hospital. So
when you found out the extent of her injuries, what went through your head?
Sadness. I was honestly more upset for her because I knew that she was shot in the abdomen, and obviously, we were engaged at the time, so I was worried that she wouldn't be able to have kids, mainly because I know that she wanted a big family. Like, she always wanted 15 kids or something crazy. So that was probably the hardest thing, was I was so worried about how, if she was going to be able to have children or not, and how that was going to affect her. That was probably one of my biggest concerns. As soon as I knew that she was okay and that that she wasn't going to, die, then I was good with whatever. I mean, if they would have said, "Oh, we can't save her arm," or whatever the case would have been, it wouldn't have made any difference to me. I just wanted to make sure that she would be okay with whatever happened, basically. Stacy is a little more forgiving than I am. I'm a very patient person, but I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive him.
He actually took a plea deal, 27 years, no gain time. So he'd have to serve every bit of it, and then he'd have the charge of attempted murder on a law enforcement officer. And that in itself was traumatic for me, because the state attorney's office they made me feel like I was a property of the state and not a victim, And I get that. You're a cop, you go up against these things, but at the same time, this is something that happened to me. I don't know, but they didn't give me a say. I had no say in whether we were going to trial or take a plea deal. They initially told me they'd never give him a plea deal. We were going to take it all the way. And then they told me, well, because he shot you through the door, and you said that, when I walked up, I didn't say Arbondale Police Department. I rang the door, knocked on the door, and checked the window, and he started shooting me. Well, because I didn't announce myself, they told me that they couldn't prove that he knew who I was.
Come on.
And that if we took it to trial, they would probably bring it down to, it would not be attempted murder on a law enforcement officer. It would be probably attempted murder, first degree, but it would get knocked down to second degree or possibly manslaughter. So for me, I had a really hard time. I was in the hospital for 20 days, and I couldn't do a lot of things for myself. I had a colostomy bag for a year. My hand was completely destroyed, so I went through 15 months of physical therapy just to get it to work again. And during that time, my husband, who was my fiance at the time, was changing my bedpans and changing my colostomy bag because I couldn't physically do it myself, and just doing a lot of things for me that a person shouldn't have to do. So I was really insecure about that for a long time. I felt humiliated the first time he had to assist me with the bedpan, and I cried. I just remember thinking, it was really unfair for him, and I'm cut up all over, so I have a lot of scarring. It took me years to even wear a two-piece again. But because of him, he finally encouraged me, and then we went on a cruise once, and he's like, now would be a great opportunity because you don't know these people.
I think it was just, something that I just was supposed to do, and something that you should do when you're in a relationship. Your partners, you should do everything together. And if it was me that got shot and not her, I know without a doubt that she would have taken care of me. I might have complained a little bit more than she did, but I know that she would have taken care of me exactly the same way. So
from my perspective, I have to do doctor's appointments every January, and I don't think my husband realized that there was still a pretty significant hole in my hip that's always going to be there. He thought in his mind that it eventually would get better. So when
I thought it would get somewhat better at least. I mean, it's a pretty good sized hole if you look at the pictures. And
Yeah.
I thought it would at least get a little bit better, and she wouldn't have such a fall risk because she's a real high fall risk. If she falls and hits something wrong, her hip can break again. So, and you only get so many hip replacements in your life. So, yeah, I was kind of worried that when we got older, we wouldn't be able to do things because she might be, have a hip problem later on. So
he went through a little miniature midlife crisis. And
quarter life crisis.
and he's like, I had just started at Geico, and he's like, babe, we should quit our jobs, sell everything, get an RV, and just travel.
She'd been like a couple weeks.
Yeah, I was like, I just started this job. And so being the good wife I am, I was like, sure, let's do it, thinking that within a month he was going to be over it,
But she kind of had that idea, and we'd always wanted to travel. We love traveling. So anytime when we take time off from work, we try to go somewhere and experience things. And I was kind of like, hey, why not? We'll just do it now. I mean, we can do it 3 to 5 years. We can always come back and get a job and work 20 more years and retire. So why not just do it now while we can?
So he found other couples that are our age that are doing it on YouTube. And then he's like, let's start a YouTube channel. And we have no filming or photography experience or anything. He had never even been in front of a camera.
GoPro that she bought me for Christmas.
Yeah. So we did. We just started filming and putting out a video once a week, and June will be a year that we've had our YouTube channel. We almost have 5,000 subscribers. So
how can people find it?
The channel's called I'm Not Lost, I'm RVing. So you can simply Google that. We also have a website, I'mNotLostI'mRVing.com, or you can just type that into YouTube and we'll come up. But we're so close to 5,000 in our first year, which I think is phenomenal since we're both still working full time. We're only putting out 1 video a week. But we go full time in the RV starting June 15th. So we're done. Our house closes on the 21st of May. We're done with our jobs by the end of May. And then we're going to make this our new life's mission. So I've thought about going around to different agencies and actually doing some public speaking and offering to share my story with them, maybe some of the PTSD side of it. And that was actually something he had talked about because I used to talk about, just the actual walk through of the story itself, and I never actually make it to the aftermath. So he's like, you should talk about everything that happened after, because a lot of people don't get to talk about that portion. But
yeah, being shot is horrendous, and it's a terrible thing, to go through. Period, absolutely, and all the surgeries and the hospital stay, and the weeks and months and all that stuff. But once you go home, you're alone. All the people who come and see you at the hospital, you do have family and stuff at your house for, weeks and stuff, but slowly that trickles away and it's just you again, you and, us. Well, and her mom was there. But it's just, you're a little more alone, and on that portion afterwards and probably the couple years directly after that were equally as hard as going through those first month, in my opinion. I mean, it's harder doing it, and then you constantly reliving it and thinking about it, and it's going to just be hard.
So this is going to be a new chapter in our lives. It's going to be great.
Guys, it's going to take you 2 seconds to hit that share button. Be extremely appreciative if you would do that. It takes a lot for these men and women to share their stories about the struggles that they faced. So thank you all guys so much for watching. Thanks for sharing. God bless America.